Do you want to be a healthier teacher? I know I definitely want to, but I think it is so important that we have a discussion on how teachers can become healthier, not only from a mental health perspective, but I think that's very important, but from a physical perspective. How do we look after ourselves? I've seen on social media platforms teachers complaining it's like the second or the third week of school, and already people are feeling burnt out. People are already feeling, what's happening in education? Why am I so tired? Why are things so difficult? So I thought what we should do is let's speak to a professional, an expert that's going to help us with a few tips and tricks and maybe mindset shifts on how we can become healthier teachers. You know, it's the start of a new year. It's January 2023, and maybe you've made some New Year's resolutions on wanting to become healthier. So now the thing is, how can we do that, but also make it sustainable? Teachers are on their feet the entire day. When we get home, it's like we're so tired. It's like, how do we motivate ourselves to keep up with a healthy lifestyle? So in today's episode, I'm interviewing Stev Stavs. Stev is an expert when it comes to optimizing your health. How do you learn the habits that you need in order to become a healthier individual? So much so, he's got 24 years worth of experience in this field, and he even lectures medical professionals on an international scale. So I thought it would be amazing to get the host of the Made to Thrive show on to our podcast so we can have a discussion on how to become a healthier teacher. So before we jump into that, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Just leave us a like or a comment and tell us what you think. What are the habits that you are instilling in your life to become a healthier teacher? Stay super. Stev, welcome to the Teach Like a Superhero show, the show where we assist other teachers to teach like the superheroes that they are. And we are extremely excited to hear what you're going to share to us today. But welcome on the show.
Oh, thanks, Francois. What a privilege to be here, and just love the work that you're doing. And I love teaching. I've been a postgrad teacher for over 22 years. I've lectured to over 10,000 medical professionals. So I love teaching. I love imparting. So it's a privilege to be on your show.
It's great having teachers from so many different spheres, because we've now spoken to kindergarten teachers all the way up to tertiary lecturers, and of course people who work with other medical professionals. Always like gets me going. My field of expertise is in biology. I've also been a biology teacher for long, so I believe that the discussion that we have today is going to invigorate me, and I'm sure that the audience will also enjoy this. But Stev, I'd like to set a scenario or a scene for you that I've picked up, especially in the last 2 days. I'm doing some talks at schools. I'm quite observant of the health of teachers. Now, for the last 2 years, there's a big thing been made about the mental health, especially in teaching. But what I'm also concerned about is the physical health of our teachers. If I look at my colleagues, and it's not really the pot calling the kettle black here. I've gone on my own health journey and weight loss journey. I weighed 130 kilograms at a stage, and I lost 30 kilograms while teaching and doing a PhD and these kind of things. But I'm seeing almost two camps, like these two poles when I look at a staff room. I'm seeing some really fit teachers, I'm seeing healthy teachers, and then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm seeing extremely overweight teachers. I'm seeing, especially with men, and it's very interesting for me, this big belly, this big gutted belly, and that really concerns me. So I thought I'd love to reach out to you and see if we can't have a conversation around what is it that teachers can do to live a healthy life. And I was wondering, are you seeing similar patterns in society where we've got these two poles of like extremely ill people, if you wish, and on the other side, like these health freaks or gym bunnies?
Yeah, for sure, Francois. I think there's always going to be those bipolar people, not the condition, but sort of on the either side of the spectrum. What I'm seeing more is 90 to 95% of people are struggling with their health. I don't think the group that's fit, healthy, and strong is growing at all. I think it's minority, really. I think to look after your health these days is taking a lot more effort and taking a lot more resources to really sort of counter the effects of modernity. And I'm not saying it's impossible. People listening out there, this is possible. There are micro steps you can take, small steps, incremental steps to help you with your health that can make a huge difference. So I don't want the audience to hear, all the viewers to say, hey, this is impossible. But the paradigm that I'm seeing after 24 years in practice is that people are getting sicker, quicker, and younger. And it's not good to see. I do think COVID in the last 2 years and possibly technology and the internet has helped some people, put things in place to help their health and their wellness. And maybe you're seeing, part of the staff room, you're seeing those few people that are triathletes or comrades runners, or they gym buddies, or whatever the story is. But the majority are struggling with their health. Even people that exercise, that look lean, mean, and trim, are struggling with burnout. They're struggling with mental fatigue. They're struggling with anxiety. A lot of them are on pharmaceuticals, and I'm not against pharmaceuticals. I think pharmaceuticals are brilliant if they're used correctly, but it often becomes the first port that people take is take a sleeping tablet, take an anti-anxiety to deal with the stress, and those have significant repercussions. So I'm seeing generally people get sicker and sicker. I'm seeing them really struggling with multiple conditions. I mean, the stats are quite clear in the States that, 1 out of 4 Americans has multiple chronic diseases, and, 2 out of 4 has one. So 50% of the American population has one chronic disease. And I think the stats are pretty similar in South Africa. We're not such an auditing nation like the US, but I'm concerned. I'm absolutely overwhelmed at stages. I go home, to be honest, Francois, and I think, how on earth is the next generation going to look after their health? I'm seeing children younger with a lot of ADHD. I'm seeing them with concentration issues, more drugs prescribed. Unfortunately, the digital era has not helped a lot of people with their mental health as beneficial as this is sitting you talking. And I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer to people hearing, but people need awareness, and awareness is the start, Francois. So that's the picture. Unfortunately, it's not pretty. It is my calling to bring and inspire and empower people to superhuman health. So that is what I'm trying to do. But current status now is, unfortunately, things are drastically declining.
So, and thank you for sharing that. I think we need this wake up call, because if we look at social media, there's a lot of, I almost want to say, these fake influencers who post like it's easy to be healthy. It's like the picture that they're creating is that it's exciting to do all of these extreme workouts, and when at the end of the day, being healthy isn't about these these fads or foofies and stuff. It's really being consistent with your practice and consistent with your habits. And in some cases, it's really boring. There's nothing very exciting about doing the same kind of workouts or eating the same kind of foods the whole time. Do you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. And, we do want to try and get people to say, listen, exercise doesn't have to be boring, but sometimes it's just a brick in the wall day. I've run 11 comrades, 40,000 kilometers on the road I've done in the last 28 years. And sometimes I love my running. And some days you just get out there and it's a training session and you do what you need to do. Because if we just had to do because we felt like doing, I don't think we would do meaningful work in our lives, or really look and steward our bodies like we need to do. So I do think there's this glamour on social media that has been portrayed, which I think is unhelpful. I think the average person listening to this needs to hear there are small things you can do every day that can move the needle significantly. And the number one thing you can do that has been proven again and again and again and again, more than nutrition and more than sleep, or the longevity perspective, is get movement into your life. Movement is one of the most important, if not the most important, for health, wellness, and longevity. So I'm not undermining sleep, which is crucially important as a pillar, or nutrition, but movement has so many research papers and studies and science behind it, from mental health to physical health. And your mental health and physical health are connected. If you've got a big beer belly, I'm telling you now, there's no ways that your brain can function optimally. So you look after your heart, you look after your brain. That's the mantra that we've got. And to look after your heart, you have to minimize inflammation and a lot of oxidative stress. And these are words that you might not understand for the audience out there, but really it's stress on the system. Inflammation is probably a precursor of almost every single chronic condition. And you will have inflammation if you've got a significant belly. So we need to counter these things as best as we can. Weight loss is not everything. You might be listening to this and say, I'm overweight. Well, that's not people that are overweight are unhealthy and people that are thin are healthy. It doesn't work as simply as that. It's far more complicated.
So I like that, starting off with what can we do, and I like that we started off with movement. Now, the backlash I typically get from many people, but also from teachers, is that where do I find the time? I know I have to do these things, but teaching is already the workload on teachers. I'm spending 6, 7, 8 hours at school in class. It's quite sedentary in the sense that you're in your classroom, and then you still have got all the marking and all of the other preparation to do. And I've got a family. So where do I find the time to go to a gym or to move or these kind of things? So what would you say if you get the counter argument or this type of question posed to you?
Oh, and that's why I said movement, not exercise, because we know that movement's more important than exercise. And so the simplest thing that moves the needle the most is get 10 to 12,000 steps a day. Get a simple tracker. If you want a Fitbit, you can get something more complex. And I'm just showing, like, this is called the circular ring. It measures your sleep and quality, and we can talk about that and how important that is, but it measures steps. And in fact, they've done a lot of research saying that if you get those steps and you move constantly, it's far better than sitting for an hour in the gym and moving there and then sitting for 6 hours. So movement is far more important than exercise, and there's a difference there. Now, teaching, hopefully you can maybe go up and down. I haven't been in a teacher's sort of classroom for a long time, although I've lectured a lot. But if you can move as much as you can, if you're on the phone, get as many steps as you can. If you're in the kitchen, get as many steps. If you're going to do calls, get it cabled into the phone and move it around as much. I could lift up my standing desk here. It's good that teachers stand, and those that have got an Apple Watch, it'll show you standing hours. Crucially important. I mean, sitting is the new smoking. That's why we've got standing workstations. So for teachers that can get this movement in, and we always say awareness is the start of transformation, Francois. So if you're aware that you're getting so many steps in, possibly, well, at night, if you can take your cup of coffee. Even just a gentle walk after dinner makes a big difference. So these things are small in terms of steps. You don't have to be a comrades runner or a gym bunny, but they make a significant difference. And, people might say to me, oh, Steve, movement. But Hippocrates, the father of medicine, Francois, said that the best medicine, man's best medicine is what? Is walking. Can you believe it? So walking is man's best medicine. So it's crucially important that people move out there. Of course, strengthening is important. Stretching is important. I'm not saying, hear what I'm saying and not saying. I'm not saying these are not important, but I'm saying if you need to start with movement.
Excellent. So if I can put all of this into the context of a school and a teacher's day, if we want to get our 12,000 steps in, here's what not to do. Get to the school, go sit in the staff room, wait for the meeting to start, get up, go to your classroom, sit in the classroom. When it's break time, go back to the staff room and sit in the staff room. When you can move, you should move. And I like doing micro exercises throughout the day. Something like 10 air squats or just like 10 or 20 sit-ups in between lessons. Get yourself a yoga mat into the classroom that if you can do a quick set of 20 sit-ups in between lessons, that's movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And, my school days at St. Stinians were, the teachers didn't sit. They walked up, they were at the board, they came up, they engaged. So you probably can get quite a few steps just while you're teaching. And I think that's as important as well. Standing is far better than sitting. So for your teachers out there that listen, do as much standing as you can. Obviously, grade it. Don't go from like an hour standing to 7 and then, you're crippled. Grade it slowly. The air squats, those things like yoga, the stretches are crucially important. And a lot of people spend time on their phones. I mean, just look at how much, time you're spending on your phone. Can you do that while you're standing or walking instead of sitting? I think that's crucially important.
Yeah. And one thing you can do if you really want to get more steps in as a teacher, ask to be placed on break duty. Now, I know this is so controversial that teachers don't want to do break duty and we don't want to do exam invigilation. But those are the two times that we really can get steps in. That's the times that we can really walk. But the benefit from an education point of view is if you rather go onto the school grounds during a break and you walk through the school, you get to observe the learners. So instead of sitting in the staff room and gossiping, rather go down to the sports field or the playground, walk about and get to see what the learners do, because then you can take whatever they're interested in, whatever they do, and incorporate that into your lessons. So it's a win-win.
Sure. And I'm going to put this out there, which I think is important, is we're starting with a very actionable step, but there's always internal drivers that are important, motivators. And, whether it comes to food, we've seen that people don't sustain their transformation because they don't have the correct motivators, both internal and external. And so we'd be amiss not to talk about those, because I think that's what's lacking most, whether it's teachers or execs or people, is what are the motivating factors, where you can say no to sitting around, where you can say no to that chocolate bar, the third one that day, where you can say yes to going to the gym. Because I think that's fundamentally important. Is a lot of people come to me, they're very sick, they're unhealthy, they put the steps in place, they're great for 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year. And then afterwards, you look at their lives and their lifestyles have changed dramatically to their old ways. So we must talk about motivators sometime in this podcast, because I think it's probably the most important part of my work, is what things can I do in people's lives or teach them or facilitate that allows them to sustain their transformation. And we've got this mantra that we want sustainable transformation. I say to people, Francois, rather forget about your food and walk 12,000 steps a day than try and fix your food, your sleep, your movement, your emotional relationships, your burnout, take supplements, and then in a year's time, I find you and you're doing nothing. So it's small, incremental changes. And we believe in health coaches. I mean, it's really affordable for teachers because they're far less expensive than specialists or often physicians that don't have the time. They're not trained in to help you transform. Your doctor, as brilliant as he is, and I'm very, very pro South African doctors. I think we've got incredible doctors, but they are not trained to help you transform. They are not trained nutritionally, they're not trained exercise-wise, they're not trained to look at your emotional status. So these are fundamentally important questions that you need to be aware of, because you might be going to your doctor expecting that he's not going to write a script for you, but he's not trained to help you transform. I think that's important, is people might be looking in the wrong places to transform their lives.
So, well, this is, I think, the best time then to speak about these motivators. You mentioned that we've got internal and external motivators. What have you found is like the most impactful, the most efficient motivators in people's lives?
Well, I think this depends on where you are in the journey or what type of person you are. But an analogy that I bring up, because I think it's really important, if you look at the discovery vitality model, and a lot of people, there's a love-hate relationship with discovery, and I have that relationship with them, but there's certain things that they are absolutely brilliant at. And they're really good at making you aware and rewarding you on your behavior. And sometimes that's what you need in the beginning of your journey, Francois. Fear can be the greatest motivating factor when you're sick. Reward can be the greatest motivating factor. So when Discovery's got their app and you press their buttons and you're rewarded with miles and you can go and spend that with regards to the psychology of human nature is very, very important. So that would be a typical example of an external motivator, saying, listen, you know what, if I can put something that rewards me because of the amount of steps I take, then let me join that program. If I get rewarded, if I'm healthier, I think it's really, really important that our two biggest pillars that made you thrive when I spend time with executive coaching over the many years that I've coached is that your purpose and your community, these two become our greatest internal drivers to sustain transformation. Do you have a clearly articulated, precise purpose that you're bringing to this world, that you bring to yourself, that you bring to your family, you bring to your friends, you bring to your work colleagues, that will then motivate you to say no to the lemon meringue cake and the beer and the starch and the popcorn on the same day. That'll sustain your transformation because you realize that this mind and this body is crucially important to living out that purpose. Do you know that? And I ask execs this, and I've been working with one of the biggest banks in this country, and many of them at a high executive level do not have a purpose. They have goals, they have career goals, but they do not have a purpose that transcends all areas of their life, which I think is crucially important. And for the people listening out there, I'll give you mine, and maybe you can share yours as a practical example, Francois. But my purpose is to inspire and empower people to superhuman health and performance. Now, wherever I can do that with my children, my daughter, my son, my wife, my staff here at Regenerative Health, my consultants at Made to Thrive, wherever I'm inspiring and empowering, I've realized that this body, this mind is crucially important for me to live out that purpose. So when I talk about a sleep hour hygiene that I need before I sleep, because I value my sleep, because without my sleep, it affects my purpose, then what happens is I've got an internal driver to say, okay, Steve, this is what you bring to this world. So this is a very important internal driver purpose. So before I move on to community, I'll give you space to maybe share your purpose or what you think about that.
Yeah, I agree fully with that. Like, we've got a mutual friend in Richard Mulholland, and he's got this thing. We don't really like speaking about goals. We'd much rather speak about victory conditions. What is the thing that drives you to victory? I just had a session with other teachers, and I asked one of the teachers, like, what's their win? Give me a win for the last week. He's like, I played soccer and I scored a goal. And I said, that's amazing. But tell me, did your team win? And he was like, no, we unfortunately lost. So I'm going, cool, you achieved your goal, but your team lost. And that's the thing about goals, is that if we rather set these victory conditions for ourselves, which is bound to our purpose, then it's much easier for us to go into action. And I like your purpose statement, especially if we want to be super teachers. It's good to strive to have superhuman health. So those two metaphors really go hand in hand.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then the other pillar is community. How important our community is. I think of Will Smith and his movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, and how he laid down his life for his child. So our closest people, the people that we trust, the people that celebrate with us our victories, the people are there in our lowest times when we're struggling. That close community, the people that you can phone 2 o'clock in the morning who are going to help you, who can take you when you got a diagnosis at a doctor, that are there, they're surrounding you. Those people are crucial with regards to a motivating factor, because sometimes what happens is we've got to keep healthy and steward these bodies and look after these bodies because we're serving the very community around us. And we talk about community circles at Made to Thrive. What are the community circles? So your closest community could be your family, it could be your very close friendships, it could be online coach as part of your community, your doctor. These community circles, how you can serve them with your purpose is crucially important, because they're very strong drivers. And I see this with human nature. People will look after themselves because they got kids and grandkids. That becomes a huge internal driver with regards to your health and wellness.
And I see the same in teaching. If you see a teacher operating on their own, isolating themselves, they're in many cases not the same teacher or even efficient teacher as the ones who surround themselves with a community of practice. And that's why when I do my talks and I work with teachers, I put this emphasis on you as a superhero teacher needing to find your Avengers. Finding the other humans, the other super teachers in your community that you can team up with, because as a unit, you're stronger. There's a sense of accountability. There's a sense of responsibility. And it's so much easier to stay healthy once you've understood that I am part of a community. I'm not just getting served by the community, but I'm also serving the community.
Absolutely. And multiple communities. We might have a running club that's is a community that helps us with regards to running, or we might have, my wife loves dancing, so there's a dancing community, or you might have a church community that you serve. And then, so there's multiple communities, and the more we can connect into these communities, I feel that better that we are going to be motivated to bring what we bring to this world, because we're not only serving ourselves, we're serving others. And there was a famous study that was done in 2007 by Nicholas Christakis, talking about how important the community that you have that surrounds you. And he said, if you got an obese friend, you're 40% more likely to be obese yourself. Mm-hmm. So obesity is contagious. The people we surround ourselves, they talk about COVID being contagious, but if you got an obese friend, now don't go and fat shame or go and shame your obese friends, okay? But the point is, if you want to have healthy habits in place, you want to have a healthy lifestyle, you need to surround yourself with communities that are healthy.
Yes. No, I agree with that. And that's why I think where school leadership should take a bit more responsibility as well in creating the circumstances or the environment where teachers can be healthy. That if we overwork our teachers and we keep them bound to the school and we keep them bound to academia, then there's less time for them to be part of these communities. There's less time for them to invest in these kind of activities. And in the long run, you're just breaking down that individual and they won't be the effective teacher. So do you think there's things that school leadership can do to create an environment that's healthier?
Yeah, I mean, I think leadership is, once again, is influence. You know, for me, leadership is, are you influencing? In fact, I think we all are leaders. We either influence badly. I mean, Hitler was a great leader. He influenced badly in a real bad way. But I do think leadership at a school can get involved and help people. I found that institutions and companies and sort of organizations battle to implement this because it has to come from the individual. So if I had to speak candidly, and I don't know the school situation as well as you, is you need to find your Avengers 2 or 3, because the more you take accountability of that person, the easier it's going to be. I'll give people an example. There's a brilliant new sport called paddle tennis out there. You need 4 people. The chances you're going to do that activity are far less than when you need 2 people. So there's a brilliant game called pickleball. People can check it out. It's the fastest growing sport in America. You need 2 people. So the chances you're going to do that is far greater. Why is running such a great, or walking such a great activity? You need 1 person. So the more complicated variables and factors that you put in place, the harder it is to maintain that transformation. And so there's got to be the individual, there's got to be the community, but I do think it's more personal accountability than coming from a school or organization. And maybe the leader is very healthy, and that is something that they would implement, and that would be incredible, because if you can get at the sort of, the top of the leadership, you can really influence it. But the sustainability of these things is very, very difficult to maintain.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. You said that the first thing we should do is start moving. So that's simple enough for us to do gradually. We don't need to, as you said, start running the Comrades Marathon. Like literally just get your 12,000 steps in. What would you say is the second thing that after starting moving, what would be the second thing we need to get right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, the caveat to that is always make sure purpose and community, that's where we start with always, because the actionable steps will fall away if those things. So if someone comes to me and there's a blank slate, purpose and community, unless they're bleeding. So in fact, say one of the areas is their sleep is just so bad. Well, I'll start with sleep. If they're getting 3 hours of sleep, they can't sleep. We're going to start directly with sleep before we start working on internal motivators. But the second thing I would probably say is sleep. So movement and then sleep. And sleep, the first thing that people would need to know is what we call circadian biology. Circadian really means your day and night cycles, your sleep-wake cycles. So sleep is crucially important for recovery. I think it's fundamentally important. And I think people have realized that if you don't get the correct quality sleep and quantity, it's going to have a dramatic effect on your system. We know that if you have reduced or poor quality of sleep, your immune system can be depressed by up to 70%. Men that have less than 5 hours sleep over a period of time reduce their testosterone by like over 50%, their testicles shrink. So there's a lot of studies on sleep. Matthew Walker, the professor at Berkeley, is someone that people can follow, why we sleep. He's got a lot of research on sleep and how important it is. So it is one of the foundations that people need to get into place. And I would say, get a morning sunlight to get your circadian rhythm without sunglasses, at least 20 minutes on a cloudy day and 5 to 10 minutes on a sunny day. You want to get sunlight into your eyes. You don't want to stare at the sun, but you want to get sunlight into your eyes. There are receptors in your eyes that are sensitive to sunlight, that are crucially important for your circadian rhythm. That means your hormones are getting released at the right time, which is fundamentally important. So your sleep at night starts with the morning, actually, and people don't know this. They get in their cars. Unfortunately, their windows are up. It cuts the correct light coming through and getting absorbed by your eyes and your skin. So get up in the morning. Hopefully, if you can get bare feet on the ground to get grounded, that has other benefits that we can possibly talk about later. But get as much sunlight onto your skin, into your eyes without burning. That shouldn't be the case in the morning. But the more sunlight you can get, the better you're going to sleep at night. Then keep it very, very sort of orange and yellow and dark at night. So your last hour or 2 hours, fundamentally important from a sleep hygiene perspective. And sometimes that's possible with devices and work, and sometimes it's not. We recommend 2 products, Iris Tech, which is a product that you download on your PC that cuts sort of your flicker and changes the colors according to the time of day. Incredible product. And then blue blocking glasses, orange ones. And this is why I say orange or red, because they have to cut the correct light, red and green light, that affect melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So there's a lot there, but your sleep is fundamentally important. There are simple things you can do, like getting outside as often as you can, and limiting artificial light at night and stimulation, and having an hour at least of sleep hygiene before you sleep.
Excellent. Now, the challenge that teachers often have is we are spending late evenings with marking and preparation. And in many cases, teachers would rather cut into their sleep in waking up earlier or staying up later to get work done. And this cuts into the amount of time that we sleep. And that really isn't healthy.
No, not at all. And, unfortunately, people don't realize that in the short term, they might get the marking done, they might get the work done or the class prepared, but long term, they're going to cause significant health problems. And so if you want to perform at your best for long term, you're going to need to look after your sleep. You need to watch your circadian rhythm. And so in any way possible, if you do need to work or you choose to work, make sure you put the biohacks in place. And maybe this is where I can introduce biohacking.
Yeah, let's do it.
Pro biohacker, but biohacking is really the art and science of assessing your internal environment, which is your body, and your external environment, which is where you live, move, and work, and then making the necessary changes to optimize your mental, physical, and emotional health. So simply, it means you need to assess and be aware of your environment and make the necessary changes. For example, if you need to work, make sure you put those blue blocking glasses on. Make sure you got Iris downloaded on your computer. If you are going to vegetate and watch Netflix, make sure you got the orange glasses on, because that's going to dramatically improve your recovery while you sleep. And recovery is so important. I spent time with a good friend of mine, a psychiatrist, Dr. Naeem Muller, and he says that almost every single psychiatric disorder starts with sleep disturbance. So if you want to move towards mental ill health and you want to move towards burnout and fatigue and tiredness, then make sure that you compromise your sleep.
I like that. And specifically, so many people say teachers are crazy. And now I understand why. It's because we're not getting enough sleep in. Colleagues, rather get your sleep in. I know there will be evenings that you'll have to burn the midnight oil. There'll need to be times that you have this crunch time. But if this becomes your lifestyle and you're cutting into your sleep the whole time, the chances of you getting a heart attack, the chances of you really becoming ill just increases tremendously.
Absolutely. And we've got a brilliant sleep podcast with a sleep doctor in America called Dr. Michael Bruce. He's got a brilliant, very succinct program, like make sure that you give it much time before you sleep with regards to your eating schedule. So give at least 2-3 hours before you eat. Late night snacking destroys your sleep. So if you're going to be marking, be aware that you want to stay off eating, because that's going to make your sleep even worse. Exercise late at night just before you sleep is going to be unhelpful for your sleep. So there are these things that can really help us. So if you've got late night marking, then try and get in your eating at 5:30, 6, and then give yourself 3-4 hours. That's going to be a game changer with regards to sleep. Or maybe you've got a fasting protocol. Then try and fast dinner if you've got to work late, because that's going to help your sleep again. So there are quite a few hacks with regards to your sleep, especially if you have to work late at night.
Awesome. So we've covered the motivators, we've covered movement, we've covered sleep. Give us one more thing that we can implement in our lives now to just increase our health.
I think nutrition, would be amiss if we don't talk about nutrition. There's a lot out there with regards to nutrition. We try and simplify it at Made to Thrive to eat real, healthy, nutrient-dense food. Anything with a package or anything with a label, any type of things you do not recognize on that label, that's probably the most important thing you can do, is just eat real food, trying to recognize real food. I think the processed food is probably the most damaging food that you can put in your body. I mean, there are so many diets, from carnivore to ketogenic to low carb to weight. I mean, there's just so many processes. But if you can just start with real nutrient-dense food, I think that is fundamentally important. If you can watch your circadian biology, so when you eat is one of the most important things. We ask these questions like, it's simple. It's a simple framework of what are you eating, when are you eating, who are you eating with, how are you eating, and why are you eating? Most people think they're eating because they're hungry. They're actually eating because they need to thrive. Your body's taking in nutrients and information so that you can thrive and live out your purpose through a very safe and celebrating community. But most people are just eating to survive. They're working on this second amygdala brain, this really stressed out reptilian brain. And the first thing that comes along is they jump at fast food, or they jump at processed and packaged food, which is not good for the system. So when you eat, do you have a fasting protocol? Most people, not everyone, can fast and develop a fasting protocol. I think teachers can develop a fasting protocol. And this is where the health coach comes in to help guide people with sort of bespoke, unique eating plans, fasting plans, movement plans, sleep plans. Everybody needs a coach. If you're a teacher out there, you're a principal, you're in education, please. You've seen the power of sport coaches across the world. Everybody has. Every single person needs a health coach to guide them along, to spend time with them. And that's probably a fundamental pillar for us at Made to Thrive, Francois, is coaching, facilitating transformation, walking alongside people. Many people are really private about their health and their health data and their numbers and what they weigh and where they're going. But a health coach can be a real confidant, someone you can take, and just really share your heart with regards to your health and wellness journey. And I think human capital and spending time with people over this time, I would say, is even more important than the greatest, exercise or nutritional plan that you can get. If someone's walking with you, I think if you want to go far, then go together. If you want to go fast, then go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Yes, I like that a lot. And one of the challenges, I think, is in meal preparation, is that the decisions are made when you go grocery shopping. The thing is, especially for teachers, when you wake up early, we need to be at school 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning already. So that rush in the morning just makes us eat any crap, and hoping that that's going to sustain us. But the decisions are made when you go grocery shopping, and the decision is technically made on the Sunday while you're preparing for what am I going to eat. Because if we don't think about what we're eating and we're just grabbing the easiest, the simplest thing, that in turn is very unhealthy for us.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's why we feel that data at Made to Thrive is so important, because data like a watch in terms of what's happening with your sleep, or a ring, what's happening with your sleep or your movement, is a very powerful external motivator to help us make those decisions. So is human capital in the form of a health coach, for you to be accountable, not to see your specialist every 3 months and he asks you, 5 minutes about your sleep and your nutrition. Hang on, I've got a health coach who's walking alongside, looking at the data, looking at my numbers and holding me accountable to those numbers and that data.
Steve, this was extremely, extremely informative, and I'm sure there are many teachers wondering where can they find more information, where can they follow you, where would you say is the best place for teachers to go and look you up and get more information?
Now, we've got two great websites. My personal brand is stevstavs.com. The business Made to Thrive is madetothrive.co.za. We're on Instagram, Stev Stavs, where, you know, it's an incredible sort of short format. We're doing a lot of reels, a lot of videos. People that want the podcast Made to Thrive show, we're streaming on 8 platforms there. I've got a YouTube channel, Stev Stavs. So we're really trying to educate. And Francois, that's why I commend you for, you know, you're a colleague to me. I've been trying to, you know, teach for 21, 22 years, you know, postgraduate, the public. I'd love to get involved. Maybe we can have a chat afterwards, or go to, you know, some high schools, or where I can, you know, inspire and empower people with health, not only the teachers, but the pupils. I'll sit in staff rooms, wherever I can help educators, because I'm a huge believer in education, massive. And often education is something that brings awareness to people, and that's their start of their transformation, whether it's their careers, whether it's their health, whether it's their wellness or their performance. So, you know, I salute you, and I thank you for your channel, and thank you for the time. I'm a true educator at heart, and I'd love to partner with you in South Africa, Africa, and beyond.
Excellent, Steve. I'm totally open to that. We'll have a chat very soon to see what we can do together. I'm excited about that. But to end us off today, thank you so much for teaching like a superhero, and then also assisting all of us, you know, to gain that superhuman health. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the teachers will do with this information. To all of you watching out there, if you haven't liked, if you haven't subscribed yet, it would be great if you could do that. It really helps out the channel and spreading the word and spreading the awareness around being healthy. I'm looking forward to interacting with you in the comments. Do so, leave us a comment or two, and until we speak again, stay super.